reality
Therapist
what's been going
perception.
on.
Bachelorette.
Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist. And quite frankly, after this episode, I feel like I might need one. It was a hard watch.
Yeah, it was
Heavy,
was,
awkward.
It was a tough watch. I said at the end of our Reactivity TV for episode 5 that I had a lot of empathy for Joey, but tonight, man, wow, he had a tough week. My heart, my mind, my empathy was with Joey all episode.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if he only had to eliminate 2, but after this episode, he just went to production and begged them to let him eliminate 2 more. I mean, it was a hard, heavy episode, and
let's just get
this over. I can't do this for another week. But yeah, speaking of hard things, I do have a question for you before we get started.
Well, shouldn't we say like what we're doing here?
No, that doesn't matter to that. Do you feel bad for yourself?
What?
Do you feel bad that you're making me record at 10:30 at night just so that you don't have to come back to Connecticut with me and you get to stay in Miami for another few days and I have to go back to shitty cold Connecticut where I hear it snowed again?
I'm not making you go back to Connecticut.
You're right.
And no, I don't feel bad for me.
I see.
I'm not one of these women on the show.
Oh, well, once again, we're doing a live reaction at 10:30 at night, immediately after the episode, because I have to get on a plane tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, and you get to stay here. And so if we don't record now, we are going to be recording remote. And we all know how that went a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So why don't you lead us in and tell everyone what we're doing here?
Well, if it's not already obvious, we are talking about season 28 of The Bachelor, episode 6. This is Joey's season, and they are in Canada. But before we go, go abroad to Canada, is it technically abroad?
I don't. It depends. Well, they were in Spain.
Sure.
So it's abroad from Spain.
Okay. Well, so before we go to Canada, I want to remind you all to hit that like button at the bottom of this video. And also please subscribe to our channel. We are slowly but surely climbing our way up to 1,000 subscribers. So if you are not a subscriber yet, hit that subscribe button. If you love this show and you are a subscriber, share it with a friend. Encourage them to subscribe too. These are 2 really small things that go such a long way for us, and we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. And also please hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
All right. Should we get moving?
Yes. So let's start off with, I think, the big, giant, obvious elephant in the room, right? Have you ever seen an episode of this show where the lead was more disinterested in any part of it? From the group date to the minus the Maria one-on-one, he was just off from moment one, seemed disengaged, disinterested. And I also want to point out something that I don't know how many people are going to notice, but his attire this week, I mean, if that didn't scream, I don't care, I don't know what did. With the only time he really dressed up and looked good this week, or by good, let me rephrase. He looked fashionable or looked like he actually cared about where he was or what he was doing was in the date with Maria.
I love how you're talking about fashion, but
hey, listen, those who can't teach.
Well, I wouldn't say he wasn't into it. We talked about last episode how exhausting that must be, hearing people's story after story after story, tough stuff.
And they heavy trauma dumped on episode 5.
Heavy trauma dumps. And like being the lead is so much pressure and responsibility, and you need to be on the whole time. And I don't know that he's disinterested. I think he's burnt out and exhausted. I don't know how much he's sleeping, like all of that stuff. So I didn't see it as disinterested. I saw him as exhausted. And that's kind of what we open up to on this episode. Joey with a lot of face to camera and talking about the toll that this experience is taking on him, and that this isn't him. Like for him to be on and like energetic in this way, like that's not natural for him. That's not his typical personality. So to put that on all the time, I mean, I relate to that so hardcore in like having to be so extroverted for my career and actually being pretty introverted and liking quiet and liking being on my own at the same time. Like it does get exhausting. We also hear Joey talk about this idea that he has in his mind that people expect him to not only be on, but for him to be perfect. And he talks about how he is like the biggest critic of himself, and that he notices all of his flaws, and he's really worried that someone else is going to see those and reject him. So we hear a lot about Joey's headspace, and that definitely, to your point, like shines through the episode.
Okay, so you think that Joey is not disinterested. He simply just has reached a level of burnout, and he just kind of needs a little bit of a break.
I think he's burnt out. I think he's really anxious. They're more than halfway through at this point. Feelings are getting real for everybody. It's, again, a lot of pressure. He doesn't want to fuck this up. I mean, I feel like he says that all the time. He wants to be with someone, with his person at the end of this. And I also imagine it's a little bit of like analysis paralysis going on too. So a mix of burnout and just like stress and anxiety of like wanting to do this well and wanting to do it right.
Yeah. Well, spoiler, Joey, you didn't get your rest and relaxation this episode. In for another one. So, yeah, let's just kind of get into it. We had 2 one-on-one dates. They would go to Maria. Shocker. I've been saying for a long time, he is in on Maria. She is going to go, pretty close to the distance. I do not think he picks her in the end, but I think she is absolutely going to hometowns. And Kelsey T, which I have a lot of thoughts about Kelsey T's one-on-one. And then everybody else, the other 8 remaining women, go on a group date.
Right.
And
we got the group date first.
We get the group date first, yes. And we want to talk about just absolute awkward. Did every single woman on that date talk about odd vibes, it being weird, it being awkward, nobody really feeling it? It was a date where they're running around the city basically via a scavenger hunt, doing a bunch of random things. They go and they make poutine, which is a desecration of the French fry. They buy some souvenirs. They play some street hockey. Just a lot of very Canadian things to do. And our 29% Canadian audience, I'm sure they appreciated some of the, the cultural stuff. So, hey, shout out to all of you. Thanks for watching. But it was lifeless, listless. It was painful to watch this. Every girl commented on how it was pretty, low key, bad vibes, awkward.
Well, hold on though.
With the exception of Jen.
Yeah, Jen's the MVP of this date.
She shined, yeah.
So here's the thing. And this is like really interesting, like in terms of systems theory. And essentially,
wait, back up. What is systems theory?
I was just going to explain.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Us lay people, we gotta.
So essentially, like it's not rocket science, but it like we are all individuals are part of a system, and an individual can impact a system, and a system can impact an individual. It's an interactional dynamic that exists. And so one person can really heavily impact a system, aka Joey. Joey comes in, low mood, low vibes. What does that do? That sets all the other women on edge. Now, all of the women they're like feeling a little uncomfortable, feeling anxious. And we see that spiral. We see the women now like, and again, like kind of another term different school of thought, but all theories are related, kind of a parallel process happening. So Joey is feeling anxious that someone is going to not reciprocate his feelings and that they're going to leave. And how do all the women feel? Worried that Joey's not going to reciprocate his feelings and worried they're going to be sent home. And so it's really interesting to see the interactional dynamic between all of these people within this one system. And so it was amplified by the fact that the women just made it about themselves and their own insecurities. And that was what was really frustrating as a viewer and as a therapist for me to see, was like how much the women, centered it around themselves and couldn't look to Joey, except for Jen.
During the group date, you mean specifically, yeah, because we did see later on Rachel, I thought, demonstrated in a cocktail party much later in the episode. But yeah, I've been saying that Jen has more or less been friend zoned here for a while, and she made tremendous strides at breaking herself out of the friend zone. And I'm a big fan of Jen. Actually, she's from Miami. She could be down the street. Hey, Jen, swing on in. We'd love to have you. So yeah, she was the all-star. She was the only one that he really spoke particularly highly of or positive of. And later on during the evening portion of the date, he has a bunch of one-on-one time with each of them. And with almost all of them, at least that we saw, he led with something like, "You seemed off today," which I did think was interesting. Because as you pointed out, he's the center of the system. He's the catalyst for why the system was disrupted. So I do want to get your thought in a minute on him asking them why they were off when he was the reason they were off, and what that might mean. But Jen was the only one where he led with, "You were great today. I had so much fun. Even though we didn't have a lot of one-on-one time, you were like the shining star, basically." And I thought that was very meaningful, to the point where she ends up getting the group date rose. That being said, it was a low bar. I mean, there was not a lot of other things going.
Yeah. So to clarify, one dynamic that existed was perhaps started by Joey. Like his insecurity led to insecurity of others. Joey might not be aware of that. Joey might not know how much his own anxiety and insecurity is showing or rubbing off. He might think he's doing a damn good job. Who knows? But all of that aside, for him to, I could also see him saying, like, "You seemed a little bit off today," also coming from a place of insecurity of, "Oh shit, did I bring the vibe low? Did I do something to make this person feel insecure?" And so like doing that as a way to reassure them, reassure himself, reassure the connection.
So if I understand systems theory well, this would be like, I come home late from work and I wake you up from a nap, which causes you
My least favorite thing that happens.
Which causes you not to get a good night's sleep, which then causes you to keep me awake throughout the night with your tossing and turning, which causes us both to then have a bad day of work. Is that a good example of system theory?
I mean, not in the way that it's meant to be used, but yes. I mean, we interact and impact one another by what we do. So sure.
So my understanding of systems theory is almost as good as my ability to speak Spanish.
The other thing.
See last week's episode for Chris speaking muy bien español.
Yes, that 670-day streak of Duolingo definitely paying off.
Paying off hardcore.
The other thing that was going on during this date was we started to hear the topple of the falling in love with yous happen, like the domino effect. Like we got
when you said they're not the I love yous, you mean the I'm falling for yous, as in like that's like the precursor to the I'm falling in love, like where that's the second domino after I got the feels for you or whatever.
Yeah, I like you. Then it's I'm falling for you. So we hear
Kelsey A, in which you're tripping for him.
Yeah, that was cute. I
change it up a little.
You heard I'm a little. I told you I'm a little clumsy, and so I'm falling for you. So something along those lines. It was cute. But she was super anxious on the date. Yeah. But she tells him that, she's falling for him. We also hear Jen say that she's falling for him too. Jess tells him that she's falling for him, which at that point, we see perhaps the epitome of the emoji with the like
gritted teeth.
Yeah, gritted teeth. Face. That was Joey when Jess was.
So let's pause on Jess here for a second, because I have been, I don't think I've been critical on the podcast, but I've been critical during our watches that we are 6 episodes in and Joey has not failed to give a rose to anybody on a date. Every single one-on-one has received a rose. Every single group date has received a rose, and the 2-on-1 has received a rose. I just feel like that's not possible. Right? Like somebody along the way should not have deserved a rose. And
there's so many women.
I get that. And also I've been saying like he knows he can punt some of these women. Like give us something interesting in the intermediate time period, right? You don't have to wait for a rose ceremony always to make something drastic happen. It's just better entertainment. And it's also in many cases more honest and real. And so I did love this Jess eliminating her. Because it felt like, in some cases, some of the most genuine part of this entire thing. A girl coming down and saying, "Hey, I'm falling in love with you. I want to be in a relationship." And the guy being like, "See ya." Mm-hmm. I mean, tell me that isn't extraordinarily relatable to probably the majority of people in the world, relative to a rose ceremony. So I dug it. I loved it.
It's the perfect invitation for a breakup, right?
Sure,
like, yeah. She's expressing like where she feels and what and expectations that go along with that. And that is an invitation for either an agreement to move forward or a breakup. And
Yeah.
Joey says, like, you can't fake that. And he sends her home.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, that was the best part of the group date, quite frankly.
Well, I argue that Lexi's conversation with Joey was the best part of the group date.
Well, I thought that was the most impactful and meaningful. Not necessarily the most entertaining from a production.
Well,
quality
not
standpoint.
entertaining, but
Yeah.
like this, we criticize this show in particular, The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise, for being so surface level,
Mhm.
for them not having real conversations. We talked about this, especially on Bachelor in Paradise when it was nearing engagements and how all the couples broke up, and we're like, you were not having important conversations. And here we have it. Lexi, who's 30 years old, with fertility struggles, right?
Mhm.
She refers to it as infertility. And she needs to know,
Yeah.
Where are you at? You know, you know this about me, that I have an accelerated timeline. I need to know, like, where do you see yourself in 2 years? What does it mean to be engaged? What does it mean to be married? What's your timeline for kids? She just cuts straight through the bullshit because she has to get
Yeah.
answers.
So let's back up a little bit
And
on
see if
that.
they're
So
on the same page.
yeah, so we kind of get some face to camera with Lexi, who's basically saying that she is on the accelerated timeline. She cannot wait 5 years. It's going to be a struggle, she believes already. So she's planning on engaging him on this conversation. We know pretty firmly that he's into Lexi, maybe not as much as he is into Maria, but he's definitely into Lexi. And they had a great one-on-one date. He seemed receptive to the fertility issues. And so she addresses this with him. And we know from face to camera that she is looking to be married quickly, followed relatively quickly with kids.
Mhm.
I don't think she says a specific timeline, but we're feeling like kids within 2 or 3 years, maximum kind of situation here. That's kind of the impression I got. And when she addresses this with Joey, he comes back and says a 2 or 3 year engagement followed by potentially
A few years of marriage.
a few years of marriage. So let's say 2. So we're talking about 5 years to kids.
Mhm.
And you just saw her deflate.
Yeah.
And you just saw it in her face. The one thing I will say is that Joey did say, "This is what I'm thinking, but I'm not married to it. Depending on what is happening,
Mhm.
that timeline can change." So he hedged himself a little bit, gave himself a little bit of an out.
Mhm.
But the reality is, she was not
so
looking to
far
push
away.
it. And
They're so far away from each other,
And-
you
and
know,
this
like
is-
in a negotiation, right?
well,
Like,
I was gonna say we just had a negotiation recently at Revive where the where somebody wanted to be and where we were willing to be were so far away that it wasn't even worth countering or even having a conversation. And the person was shocked that we weren't going to engage them. And it's like we're not. I mean, we're so far away. There's nothing to even talk about, and that's exactly what this felt like.
Mhm.
I know it's a matter of 3 years, but for somebody in Lexi's situation,
She-
3 years
but
is a lifetime.
I was doing the math right along with her. So she's 30, 31, right? So 2 to 3 years, which is in Bachelor time, like they would have only known each other for 2 months, barely at this point. So a 2 to 3 year dating to engagement is not unheard of,
No,
right?
not unreasonable.
No, not unreasonable. But for her, she's what, then 33, 34?
33, 34
maybe
before
at
they
that
get married.
point. And then if you wait another few years, say that's conservatively 2
35,
years,
36.
35, 36.
And
For a
here's the thing,
healthy woman.
for a healthy woman, she's
That's
now
tough.
36. She's into a geriatric pregnancy already.
I hate that word.
Well,
yeah.
that's the medical term, is it not? Is there a different term?
I don't know. I don't know if it's updated, but
Okay, well,
but
yeah.
it is much more challenging.
And she potentially has infertility issues.
Well, she doesn't potentially. She has them. It's just the degree to which
yeah, exactly.
they will impact her.
Yeah, exactly. So, we know plenty of friends of ours who have tried unsuccessfully for years to have kids. And so this isn't just a matter of like, oh, first try, we're gonna have a kid, or we're gonna, choose to have kids 5 years. It could be multiple years of attempts before something, finally, takes. So I'm with Lexi here. I'm such a big fan of Lexi. This was probably in some ways my favorite conversation we've had this entire season because it was so real. It was raw. It was honest. It told me that Lexi is not just here for clout and influence. It told me she's really here because she does want to get married. And and you just saw in her face the disappointment.
Yeah.
And we both said it at that point. She's not making it through this episode one way or the other.
No, I mean, I think it was just very clear, like how much Lexi thinks about this and how little Joey as a 28-year-old does or has had to. And so I just think like it's just one of those things that like, oh, it really sucks. Like it, like it makes you envious of like the opposite sex that like you don't have to think about it, but like I would, right? And it just kind of sucks that they have a really real reason for them to not be on the same page. And maybe all other things aside, it could have worked, but this is just a huge obstacle.
Yeah, and the conversation that Lexi has with Maria after this conversation and before she talks to him again later on in the episode, where she acknowledges no one's done anything wrong. His timeline is perfectly reasonable. My timeline's perfectly reasonable. We're just not on the same page. And it is a kind of a deal breaker situation.
Yeah.
And that just happens sometimes. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those areas where, men don't think about the childbearing aspect in relationships. It's statistically speaking, men tend to marry younger women by a year or two on average. And our stuff just never stops working. And we're not biologically programmed to crave children the way a woman does biologically. So it's just like, yeah, for a 28-year-old guy, he's not thinking about it. And it's not because he's a bad guy. It's just because he's a 28-year-old guy.
I can't not think about the iconic scene in My Cousin Vinny. My biological clock is ticking like this.
We ain't ever gonna get married. Great movie. Great callback.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So we do see the rest of this conversation later, but for the purposes of staying in chronological order, let's wrap up the group date. As you already said, Jen gets the rose. Not surprising, Jen gets the rose. She was the bright spot. She was the MVP of the group date.
She's the only one.
Yeah. And
that brought any levity to it.
Like, and I think it sort of sucked, like the juxtaposition. Wow, that is my word of the season. The juxtaposition where we see this like heavy, real conversation with Lexi, not even heavy. I won't even say it was heavy. This real conversation with Lexi and Joey. And then right after that, the like fun, flirty conversation with Jen. And I said to you, like, she's getting the rose because she's not asking him about kids.
She's the only one there who, because these girls came in and trauma dumped again for the most part. You had Caitlin came in and, oh, by the way, she was wearing Lexi's dress. So I don't know where she's going to get her wardrobe for the rest of the season. But she just starts crying. I was like, why? What's going on here? Then you go on to Kelsey A, who, she's super insecure, super anxious. And, you can tell he's like super attracted to her, but like, she's just like way off. And he's trying to kind of like talk her back up to some level of security. Then you have the Lexi situation, and then, you have the Jen, finally, okay, some levity, thank God, after 3 tough ones. And then Jess comes walking in. And I just, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, Jess, if you say anything trauma related, he's just going to eliminate you. And she didn't say anything trauma related. She just came in and said, hey, pick me. I'm ready to marry you. And he's like, yeah, nah, I'm done.
Not on the same page.
Yeah. So I just feel like we don't know what the actual order of these conversations were, but the way that production framed them up, like if they were even close to that, I get it.
Yeah.
By the time Jess came walking into that room, I would have been ready to punch people too.
A breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
For sure. I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio.
All right, so let's move on to the first one-on-one, which is Kelsey T. Okay, I'll be the one to say it. Kelsey T came across to me as extraordinarily disingenuous. I had a hard time believing a lot of what she was saying during the dinner. And I just didn't think that Joey was all that into it, even before he got sick on the tilt-a-whirl.
Okay.
And by
So
tilt-a-whirl, I mean they went and became circus acrobats for the afternoon, basically.
yeah, they had like some Cirque du Soleil training, which looked tough.
Awful.
Yeah, no, please don't take me on a date like that.
When they had him going
Like
up
in a
and around in the
hamster
hamster wheel, I was just like, nah, that's no thanks. I'm all right.
So you use like words to characterize, like Joey, you refer to him as robotic.
He
Kelsey
was very
T,
robotic this episode, but I
Kelsey
don't blame him this
T,
one.
you just said disingenuous. I wholeheartedly disagree with those
Really?
characterizations. What I will say, again, like therapist term, affect was very flat,
Mhm.
like very
And Kelsey
flat,
T or Joey or both?
both.
Yeah.
And with Joey, where what I think comes off as robotic, I see as again, like affect doesn't match like stated, like expressed feelings because he's saying, I feel so connected and so bonded with her, but his face and his words are so flat.
Mhm.
And so I could understand how you could feel like this isn't really believable. Uh, but for me, like I can't read, I can't assume intention. All I can say is that affects were flat.
I just think guys are easier to read than women give us credit for.
Well, I'm going to use it again. We need to do it. We need to do a juxtaposed count because apparently I can't stop saying I need a new word. Please give it to me.
Dichotomous.
No, because I was going to say when we look at his date with Kelsey compared to, how about that? His date with Maria, we see just the difference in connection and bondedness, to use his words, and chemistry and compatibility.
Well, that's because he likes Maria.
But I think it's her too. It's them together.
Yeah, well, look, I think he clearly likes Kelsey A, and he clearly really likes Maria, and so he can like pick himself up and actually care and be a little bit free in himself. These other dates all just feel like he's saying what production is telling him to say, trying to come across looking at the good guy, trying to pretend
You're
like
saying it's not believable.
I'm saying no part of this Kelsey T date was believable on any level for me. He is not into her, and I don't even think is really that into him, quite frankly. I don't think either of them are into each other.
Yeah, okay. Fine.
And not in a Rachel sort of like we think that Rachel and Joey genuinely like each other and would like there to be a spark, but there just isn't a spark. I don't think Joey and Kelsey T are even into each other at all. I don't even think either of them really wants to be into the other one. It's just they're here. And Kelsey T sort of gets the advantage of sort of being, she's just being kind of on the cusp. She's on the bubble, right? Whereas obviously with the Caitlins and the Leias and the Jesses around, like, okay, you're not going to eliminate her before you eliminate all of them, but like how much farther can she really go?
Yeah. Well, listen, I think that we hear Kelsey T say that she struggles with vulnerability. That's really clear in the way that she engages with him. She also comes into every interaction with Joey like coming like down to business. Like I've gotta like put some things out there, or like I need answers, or you know what I mean? Like if she comes in kind of a more defended position, which again speaks to difficulty with vulnerability and difficulty with trust. And she gives us sort of some insight into that. And I don't want to speculate too much about her history. But I guess what I'll say is when we're hearing about where her trust issues stem from, it feels like we're missing parts of the story and we're not entitled to those, but it just felt like we're missing stuff. But essentially we learned that her relationship with her dad drastically shifted throughout her life, going from very, very close to feeling or being rejected by her dad due to, I guess, her lack of adopting his religious beliefs. And so that kind of whiplash of having someone who is like your rock, she says, your safe haven, to now saying like, you want to go to college, we're out. That shook her so much that trust is really difficult. And that makes sense to me. That makes sense that you would feel like you were always waiting for the other shoe to drop in a relationship with someone, and that it would be really tough to trust again.
Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on this entire part of the conversation. When I hear Kelsey T's story, it sounds to me like a story that is missing some very important pieces and some very important context. And we obviously don't know the accuracy, but this feels like one of those stories where there's your opinion, my opinion, and then somewhere between them is the truth. There's a lot that's just not jiving in the story for me. A lot of and we'll never know the truth, and it's not our place to know the truth. But it was just another trauma dump for Joey to have to deal with, in a girl that he didn't seem all that interested in. It felt like a weird placement for me strategically. For you said like Kelsey T comes in and right down to business constantly. Have we ever seen him and Kelsey T have fun together? Have we ever seen them like have we seen him smile and have levity? And
he says he does.
He says it, but he says that about every woman right before he eliminates them. Like his words.
Yeah.
I
mean, she's not going to hometowns.
No. Look. There's in economics, there's a concept called revealed preference, right? And what revealed preference basically says is you ignore what people say because people either lie or there's reasons why they will misrepresent verbally because they think there's certain social social advantages to say one thing versus another. And so you just basically always ignore what everybody says and you look at what they actually do in action. And when you see what they do in action, they reveal their preferences, right? It's like I can say I support so-and-so for elected office, but who do I actually vote for? That tells you a lot, right? Obviously. And so, when you look at Joey through the lens of revealed preference, throughout the entire season, there's a lot of patterns of behavior. And that's why I just have confidence saying like I see no evidence to suggest outside of what he says verbally, which I ignore. I don't see a lot of evidence to suggest that he's actually into Kelsey T. He's never smiled with her. He's never really laughed with her. They've never had any levity moments like he has with Jen or with Daisy or with Kelsey A or with Maria. So I'm out on Kelsey T, and I'm ready for her to go next.
I was a really big fan of her lavender matching set that she wore.
Just bought that today.
It was a different shade of lavender.
I actually like the shade that you bought. It's a little shinier, and you know how I like the metallic shiny stuff. It's also way more Miami to be all like shiny and metallic. Shall we move on to the one-on-one date with Maria, which was supremely more interesting and fun, and certainly Joey had the best time of the entire episode on this date, and I don't think anybody could debate that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Okay, so this is the pretty woman date. Maria, oh my God, this is great. Even more evidence for my hypothesis from 2 episodes ago. So she gets to keep all the clothes. So she gets like a legit gift of serious monetary value in this whole thing. Oh yeah. So I feel even better about Maria being in my top 4. That's a serious gift to give somebody, and you're not just gonna waste it on whoever. Now, what I do want to ask is, do you think Leia is regretting throwing that piece of paper in the fire now? Do you not think that there was a little part of her being like, Maria, free clothes, time with Joey?
I'll come back to that question.
Yeah. I think this was Leia's moment to this almost feels like what production was waiting for the whole season, and Leia screwed it up. But anyway, so getting back to the seriousness of the date. So they hop into a limo. They show up at the store. They do a whole cute little montagey thing of her trying on a bunch of things. And you can just see the lightness and how much fun they're having together. You had said that this feels like the type of date that Maria is going to shine, and you'd almost not want to do it with anybody but Maria. Completely agree. She's perfectly suited in terms of the personalities that we've seen in the house for this. Then they're cruising around in the limo, and the banter that they have, the fact that he cannot keep his hands off of her.
I literally wrote, can't keep hands off her.
Oh yeah. And just the way that they engage. And he says in the the face to cameras, things like, I just never know what to expect. I can never predict her. And it's exciting and fun. Maria demonstrates A+ qualities and skills in how to attract a man, to grab a man's attention, to keep a man's attention, how to seduce a man. Just like she gets it. She understands how men look at women and dating and relationships, and she could teach a masterclass on how to get and keep a man's attention. It is beautiful to watch, and at the same time, she comes across as really genuine. Like I think she actually genuinely likes him and wants to do that.
Like,
and confident.
Because I think sometimes, like when women try to seduce a man or attract a man, it almost looks a little desperate.
All the time.
And or looks a little disingenuous, to your point. And there is just something about there's something about Maria, right?
Yep.
Where she just really, she leans in. If there was a way that I could characterize Maria, it's that she leans in so hard into their connection, into building a connection. She just lets herself be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I think she is doing so well. And we hear in her face to cameras or her voiceovers that that's kind of the strategy she's using. Like, I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna focus on me and Joey. Like,
which is wildly sexy.
Well, it's just a good skill in general. Like, it's a demonstration of what it is to be mindful, right? Like, just to be in the moment and to not pay attention to all of the distractions. And look how much enjoyment you get out of a situation when you're able to just be in it.
Yeah.
And so I really liked that about her. And we referenced this on last episode. I think it was last episode where she shared about her car accident that she was in. She does the same. She does another, like, it's dazzling the way that she can share a difficult or challenging experience, but not make herself a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that about her.
Quality, yes.
We see the other women tell about their harrowing tales, right? And they put themselves at the center of this challenge as though they are a victim, as though this has branded them for good. And yes, our past experiences do, of course, impact how we are today, but we don't need to be like so subjugated to that. Maria, what does she do? She starts to tell a story about an ex of hers that dangled an engagement in front of her, basically led her on for some time. And she decided, I'm out of here, I'm getting out. And now I know that I want someone who says what they want and they mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it. We know a little bit about her experience with an ex. We know that, they were misaligned in terms of what they want. Probably there's more to the story, right? Like, probably some heartbreak or lack of trust or loss of vulnerability or what, all these other things that the women are also saying. Maria says it without saying it, like it's implied, like we get it. And now she used that experience to her benefit to now know what she wants and how to spot when it's not there.
Yep. I completely agree with everything you said. While we were watching the episode, you had said, is it just me or does Maria get more attractive every episode? Mm-hmm. And I responded with, yes. And part of the reason for that, she's not getting physically more attractive, but she's the same girl week to week. We not getting a glow up in the last, whatever week. The reason she's getting more attractive is because we're seeing more of the confidence, and we are understanding that confidence is real and not fake, and we're learning more about her in the manner in which that you were just describing. And it's unbelievably attractive to see that level of confidence, that level of awareness, and that just somebody who is independent enough to just kind of be able to carry on and just learn from events and take them into the future and use them as sort of a launching point for the next experience she has. These are all wildly attractive qualities, and every week we learn a little bit more about Maria, and that's why she's more attractive to us every week.
Yeah. Yep. One thing that I also wanted to point out, I was going to say juxtaposition again, but I'm not, is when she says this thing of, I want someone who says what they want and they mean it. What does Joey do? We see him say, essentially, I can say with confidence that, and I forget what exactly he says, but like, I will care for you. I will support you, like that kind of sentiment. And I had said to you while we were watching, notice how he did not respond to Lexi with the same level of confidence at all. That was not there. And yeah, maybe he was in shock, but that was also really notable.
It was notable, but there's a degree here. Maria didn't draw any specific lines in the sand. Mm-hmm. Hers was, I want you to say what you want and say what you mean. And I want that to be believable. But there was also no specifics required in there. She wasn't asking for, an engagement within 12 months and a kid within 24 months, right? Whereas Lexi was. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. And I do think it was notable that he was so quick to jump. But again, we know he's so heavily connected with Maria. But with Lexi, what he would be agreeing to, I mean,
that's true.
is significantly more discreet
Mhm.
and significantly more embedded into a necessity for Lexi to even agree to be with him. Whereas Maria is just saying, like, you know, I need you to be honest about stuff, but we'll see what I ask for, right?
Mhm.
You know,
That's
it's like,
fair.
let's see what happens come Christmas time, whether what I ask for a gift, right? You're like, you know,
Well, maybe not quite, but okay.
Yeah.
So let's. I want to get into Lexi because you're leading us
Yeah.
there. So just to very quickly wrap up the Maria one-on-one, she tells him that she's falling in love with him. No, so
Did she say love?
yeah,
You know, Joey is actually Maria, technically, because she's so savvy. She got Joey to say to her that he loves her first, and you know what? It's on camera. He can never take that away.
that's very true.
Yeah.
So yes, she's falling in love and she gets the one-on-one date rose.
Mhm.
So she's going into the next week.
Yep. And no surprises. We all know that.
No,
Yeah.
that was great. So we do get a little glimpse of Lexi while on one while Joey's on one of these one-on-ones that she's still kind of ruminating. She's stressed. She needs
Discussing it with Maria specifically.
Yep. So it must have been on the Kelsey
It was
T date.
during the Kelsey T date. Yeah.
And so she needs to talk to him. She needs to tell him, like, talk this out, see
Yeah.
where he is. And so she goes and visits Joey. And actually, given what she was wearing, I think we saw things out of order. I think we must have seen this conversation after the Kelsey date. I don't know where the Maria date was, if the Maria date was first or second, but it was definitely after the Kelsey date and not after the Maria date because what she was wearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Lexi basically knocks on Joey's door, wants to have a chat, see if they're on the same page. But no. I'm sorry.
I was going to say she came in pretty defined in her
to
answer.
acknowledge
Yeah.
that they were not on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked what she said. You know, I heard
Really?
what you said. Well, she said, I heard what you said. But I don't have that's not something I have the privilege to do, to wait all of those years. I need to take infertility seriously as I date. And it's unfair to keep me here while I am on a different timeline.
Okay, I didn't love it as much, and this is why. She went in there, and I don't know if her decision was made up.
This wasn't a discussion.
And that's what it felt like to me. Is he had said, "This is the timeline I'm thinking about, but I'm willing to negotiate on it." And she went back and thought about it and said, "I don't want him to negotiate on it if we're not on the same timeline. Then I'm out." And that's fair. I personally would have approached it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I would have approached it and said, look, this is my timeline, have a conversation with them to see how set in stone are you? How much of a conversation is this going to be? And give him an opportunity to surprise you.
What's he going to say?
No, I understand, but
they're so on such drastically different timelines. And this is kind of reminding me a little bit, I can't believe I'm making this comparison, of the Avon and Kylie conversation about engagement on the beach, before they left. Yeah. And like they were so not on the same page there. And there's nothing like what is Joey going to say that
I don't disagree.
Like, if he says to her, okay, fine, I can make it work, then why are you're promising somebody something that you don't even know if you're going to pick at the end, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, aren't you going to resent her for this potentially?
Probably not, but I can talk about that later.
Go ahead.
Well, no, what I would just say is I hear all that and I agree, but at the same time, I would have liked to have seen her give him a chance to respond. And his response might have been, I think we're too far away. I agree. It sucks. His response might have been, let's spend a little more time together and let me think about it. Or it could have been, yeah, you know what? Like, that's my time. Because I say this all the time. Men don't think about these things all the way through. But
I could see Lexi being so scared that he would say one thing, and then when it came
absolutely, 100%, that's ultimately up to her to decide how she wants to interpret that.
Because I would be so scared he would tell me what I want to hear.
No, I get that, and he might, right? But Joey doesn't really strike me as a type who's going to do that.
No, that's a very Gary Turner thing.
That's a very Gary Turner thing to do. Yeah, but the reality though is that guys don't really think about these things. They don't think about how long
Really?
5 years. Yeah, absolutely. So once you sit them down and say, hey, this is a situation, it's cool either way, but like, this is my timeline. I need to know, are you good? Are you in the ballpark of that timeline? And if you're not, it's cool. And give them the opportunity to think about it, because guys don't think about these things. It's not on our radar until a woman puts it on our radar. And she just put this on his radar. And this is something that he and almost certainly has never thought about in his entire life, about what 5 years actually means in woman terms, right? He knows that 5 years is in guy terms, but those are vastly different things, right? And so it's okay if she's like, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. It's okay if I'm gonna bail out. Like, that's perfectly fine. But she also, I don't think Joey is as set in stone as she thinks he is.
No.
Because guys haven't given great concern. I mean, think about when you and I first started dating. Like, I had all kinds of crazy timelines in my mind that were nowhere near, in the vicinity of ballpark of realistic and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then you find a woman that you love and that you want to be with, and you say, you know what, like, yeah, what's her timeline? Like, yeah, it'll work. And then what happens is, then you go and you have kids, and you realize, oh, that, like everyone says, it's a parent, it's the most amazing thing in the world, and that, like, and you fall into a life that men change when they get married. And if you're married, if you are a good man and you're married to a good woman, you change for the better in ways that is hard to describe unless you've actually been married. And suddenly, things that you never thought you'd care about, it's like a light switch. You just start caring about them. And Joey strikes me as a truly good guy. And I think that he's going to have that light switch when he gets married. And the timelines, his timelines now are not going to matter. That I could be completely wrong, but that, guys are, we're unusual creatures when it comes to this.
We also need to, like, he's only 28.
Yeah.
Like, he is still young. 5 years from now, what, 33? That's still young.
I don't know. My dad had 3 kids by the time he was 26.
Yeah, but that was in the
a
80s.
generation ago.
Yeah.
Was it in the, I guess it was in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you were born.
I was born in the 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
You were born in the 80s too.
I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that, I think Lexi got really nervous, and she ducked out early, like, to save herself any future heartache, or just, even the idea of, like I said, being worried that he would promise something that he wouldn't, would maybe pull back later, that already happened to her, basically. So it's a way that she can save herself and still, like, find love. And again, who's to say that he would pick her? It's more time wasted. Women try to calculate that a lot. That's never really that accurate. But, if you feel like you're hard pressed on a timeline, which I'm not saying that Lexi is not, the idea of time wasted would probably be like, okay, I can't even spend another 4 weeks here. I gotta go. I gotta find my partner.
Yeah, look, I think Lexi is going to do perfectly fine for herself. I'm disappointed that she decides to self-eliminate. She was one of the bright spots on the show for me.
And now Chris is down a point.
I am finally down a person. Actually, so Daniela at Revive stands atop the leaderboard with a perfect score. I am sitting tied for number 2.
Bachelor newbie at that.
Yeah. Emma and I are tied for number 2. And we still have 5 people among the viewers that have perfect scores right now. So I will be, at the very end, I'll do a quick rundown of everything.
Just one other quick thing regarding Lexi, or the conclusion of Lexi, is that we see hear another voiceover face to camera from Joey in saying, this was my biggest fear, that someone will walk out, and if it's my person that leaves, how will I know? And I do not want to end this alone. And so again, this is really present for him.
It's a repeat. We've heard this at least 5 or 6 times. Yeah. Clearly it's his biggest fear.
Yeah.
Which actually, if you go back to, and I didn't watch Charity season, I did see the clips of it. I actually do have a little bit more respect for Charity for not actually making him get down and propose. She stopped him before he got down. He's reaching into his pocket for the ring, and she says, you don't have to get down on your knee. It's not you, basically. So I give her a little bit of credit for that, because hopefully she did that because she knew that it was going to be hard for him. As it was. So to wrap up Lexi, she does self-eliminate. We are very sad to see her go. We understand why she did it. And I think the most noteworthy thing is that neither of them felt like they were fighting that hard for it. Joey seemed really banged up, but Lexi also came in and basically said her decision was kind of made. Maybe Joey could have fought for it. Maybe Lexi could have, gave him more of an opening to fight for it. But at the end of the day, neither of them really fought for it that hard. And I think that's relatively meaningful. And so Lexi does go home. I do wish her I wish her the best, because she was one of the shining stars of this episode, or this whole season, really. And I think she's a wonderful person from what we saw. So I hope she finds what she's looking for, and I think she'll do just fine.
Yeah, same.
And then I did not think, with all that had happened, that we were getting a rose ceremony tonight.
I was pretty confident we weren't.
Yeah,
but we got one.
So
Sort
we
of
go
anticlimactic.
Super anticlimactic. Yeah. Cocktail party. Is there anything that you want to talk about in the cocktail party?
I don't really want to go into the individual interactions. I don't think we need to. But one thing that I said right before the cocktail party was like, if something happens, I'm going to be really pissed off. And the something that I was worried would happen would be that there would be more trauma dumping.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was particularly worried about that because Joey is vulnerable yet again and says, this has been a really tough week for me.
Yeah.
And it would have been
read, leave me alone, people. Please give me a minute here.
And it would have been incredibly, in my mind, selfish for the women to make it about themselves yet again. And luckily we didn't get that. We see Daisy have a funny moment, Jen also light moment. Rachel says, you always validate me, so I want to do that for you tonight. We actually see the reciprocation in a relationship. And that was the big thing throughout this episode that I was really looking for, that in a relationship, it's about two people. It's not just about Joey making you feel good. It's not just about you telling your story, like we talked about in episode 5, where I was saying, like, if I was one of these women, I'd be asking about you.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's sorely lacking, or surely lacking, in this dynamic that it gets created here, is that, like, the Bachelor gets on the pedestal, and as Joey says, like, he's the one that's supposed to completely hold it all together, and then the women try to contort themselves in such a way to be liked by the Bachelor, and the Bachelor's job is to make them feel secure, and so, like, it becomes a vicious cycle. That's not a great way to set up a relationship. And so I was very, very happy to see the women read the room tonight and say, oh, hey, like, let's not make it about me tonight. Let's make it about you. Let me take care of you. That's a relationship. And I was happy to see it. Okay, so then we get to the rose ceremony. Only 3 roses are dropped, which, like, when I saw the 3 roses, I was, like, kind of shocked. And then I did the math and was like, okay, so 2 people.
He's already given 3, yeah.
Yeah, but 2 women have already gone. So this was a bloodbath of an episode where 4 women went home with only 10.
You know what I liked about this? Is that it was kind of like getting 2 rose ceremonies.
That's true.
That's
true. So Maria, Jen, and Kelsey T come into the rose ceremony with roses, and the roses go in order to Daisy, Kelsey A, and Rachel.
No surprises.
Leia and Caitlin get eliminated.
No surprises.
No.
I mean,
No.
I don't even know, like, what would have even been a hypothetical upset here. I can't even imagine it going any other way.
No, same. The only other thing I thought was funny was in the limo exit, Leia's getting interviewed, and she says, I wasn't given the full opportunity to see what Leia and Joey would be like. And the producer asks her flat out, like, do you have any regrets? And she just couldn't admit that she needed the card.
So
and she was given the full opportunity. She was given more of an opportunity to see what their connection could be.
Yep.
She burned it. So,
I mean, the whole thing with Leia, we've already talked about. I'm so happy to see her go home. She's extraordinarily immature. And, the thing with Leia is she just touched on one of the comments that I hate the most. And it's that whole, like, you're going to regret this kind of thing, right? People like to use this comment all the time. You're going to regret not hiring me. You're going to regret not giving me a chance. Let me tell you, people, nobody in the history of the world has ever actually regretted not, hiring you or whatever. Like, You will never play a factor in their lives ever again. Stop saying it. You're
I remember
saying,
saying that to a boyfriend once when he broke up with me.
yeah.
And as I was saying it, I was like, oh, this interaction alone is going to make him not regret it.
Exactly. And that's just the thing is, if you are in a situation where you are saying that, it is some of the most off-putting stuff ever. And also no one is ever in the history of the world actually regret it. It hasn't happened. So let's just stay away from that. But it just shows where she is emotionally. She made a whole bunch of comments, but she's I'm happy to see her go. She doesn't even
Bye,
get
Leia.
it. Yep. See ya. Deuces. So that's the episode.
Yeah. Next week we're staying in Canada. We're going to
Staying in
Jasper,
Canada. Yeah.
which looks cold.
It looks colder. Elk there. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that will be next Monday.
Yep.
Before we get out of here, we got to do our rose and thorn.
You asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that. I'm a big fan of Jen. I really want to see her go far. And it felt like this episode, we saw a little flirty. We saw, like her try to connect a little bit differently. And I loved every part of it. So what about you? What's your rose?
Well, my rose is for Jen also, but for the reason that I just said a few moments ago, that she was able to show up for Joey, leading the pack in that way, that she made it not about herself, but about him and taking care of him and lightening the mood. She read the room. And I think that's really important. That attunement to a partner is really important. And so I love to see that.
And your thorn?
Okay, this will be no surprise to anyone who has watched our Reactivity TV and my girl Catherine, you know what I'm about to say. It's the falling in love with you statement.
Yeah.
I hate it so much. It is meaningless. Even Joey says the most absurd thing. I quote, "I might be falling in love with some of these women." All of those words are ambiguous. I might be, and then falling in love means nothing. And some of these women. Yeah, that's exactly that is the same as saying I'm falling in love with you, because it means nothing. And I hate that it is such a trope on the show because it's meaningless. And they're just words that you say to get you to the next round. Like, we know it's coming very early this season. Like, we usually don't see it until probably next episode and the getting ready for hometown state. So that either says they've read up on their Bachelor scripts and they are hitting those notes early, or that their connection to Joey actually does feel like deeper than in previous seasons, which wouldn't shock me. I think that they do genuinely like him. But yeah.
So is this like how Christmas decorations keep coming out earlier and earlier, and now we're starting to get Christmas decorations in October? Like, we completely skipped over Thanksgiving at this point.
Exactly. And Nick Vial, who I guess I'm quoting another week, he has said many times on his own podcast that, like, for him too, like this concept of falling in love, like, it means nothing. And so, like, producers would say, like, oh, are you falling in love with this person, or say you're falling in love with this person, and because it doesn't mean anything, yeah, you could just say it. Yeah. And so,
and you dupe the audience into thinking that you mean something you don't.
There's a deeper connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm falling in love with you,
I'm not.
Ouch.
I'm in love with you.
Oh.
We're going to see that happen probably. Like, remember last week when I said that I'm falling in love with you? Well, I'm sorry, but that's just not true. I'm in love with you.
And then we get some cascading music and stuff. Oh, boy. Well, I can't wait for that.
I might be falling in love with some of these women. Okay. What is your thorn?
This was one of those episodes where there were a bunch of things I didn't like, but there wasn't a lot of real standout moments that I just absolutely cringeworthy hated.
The poutine, you seemed pretty.
The poutine, when I had to choose, I was debating between either the complete casualness, like, with which Joey decided to dress for some of these dates, in particular, the group evening date. They're dressed in beautiful gowns. He shows up in jeans. And I'm just like, what? And not even a collared shirt. He's just like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what the dichotomy between the outfits between him and these women. It's like,
you wanted to say juxtaposition, didn't you?
No, that's your word. I'm a dichotomist individual. It just felt to me like, so you had talked about this one time where you were in college and went on a date with somebody and he just showed up just in like sweatpants, and
In
you
a
were like
hoodie.
in a hoodie, and you were like,
I put an effort.
like what is
Match my effort.
yeah, like what is this? That's what it felt like to me. All right. And it felt like that the whole episode. Like, dude, what you do not care this episode at all.
Maybe his stylist didn't care.
Yeah, that's possible. They just burnt out. The stylist is like, took the week off or something, you know. And the other, and I was debating between that or the poutine.
The what?
Is it poutine? Poutine? What is it?
Poutine.
Poutine? Okay. For those of you who don't know that are not Canadian or French, I don't even know. It's French. It's not Canadian. It's a French dish. Basically, you take French fries, delicious, crisp French fries, and you put cheese on them. Now, I know you're thinking that's cheesy fries. No, 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 no. Then you
cheese curds.
Cheese curds, yeah. Well, is that not cheese? What I don't know what a curd is.
Okay.
Either way, you stick some cheese related item on there, and you sit there like, oh, cheesy fries. That's an American thing. No, we're not done. Then we stick some sort of gravy on top of that and just saturate and soak it. And not like, oh, wait, but isn't that just like their equivalent of ketchup? No, because we don't stick the ketchup on top and let it like get all soggy and wet. And you never ketchup it with the cheese. It's all just a disaster. Oh, the whole thing with poutine. You and I actually had it in St. Lucia. That would have been 20, I don't know, maybe like 14. I think it would have been 2014 or 2015, probably 14. It's just disgusting. Yeah. So I don't know which one to go with. I think I'm maybe a little bit more fired up about the poutine.
Apparently.
But, really, I would have liked to have seen Joey put in a little more effort into his attire, at least as much effort as me. And for those that know me, that's saying something because my bar is pretty low for fashion.
Okay. All right. That wraps us up.
I mean, it's midnight again, so I think it's time to go.
Let's go to bed. So that wraps us up for episode 6 of season 28. We'll be back next week with episode 7. Sorry in advance, it will be a virtual recording.
She wants to stay in Miami without me.
We'll try to do better this next time. So you can, if you're a subscriber, you'll get alerted when our next episode drops next week. But if you can't wait until then, you can always follow along with us on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can also check out our website, revivecfw.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Amy Albero LCSW. And keep those comments going. We love the conversation in the comments. Those subscribes, keep them coming. The likes, all of that, again, goes a long way. We appreciate it. And we will be back next week. See ya.
See ya.